We were looking at the model of financial market. We started off talking about case one, where we only have a central bank and we don't have a banking sector. Right, so that was the first case we were looking at. Okay, the only bank in the economy is the central bank, and there is no banking sector here. So there's no banking sector, there's only the central bank. So we said in this case, equilibrium in financial market is where money supply is money demand. Here we said that money supply, so assuming that the money supply is being fixed by the central bank at M bar. So we have this vertical money supply curve and we have a downward sloping money demand curve. And then we said financial market equilibrium in this case, like we said, is MS is equal to MT. And graphically, we can represent the equilibrium where a vertical money supply curve and a downward sloping money demand curve intersect in this point at A. So equilibrium interest rate is I star. We can see now that there is a tendency to approach this equilibrium we looked at where MD is equal to MS by first looking at the relationship of money demand and supply when the interest rate is above the equilibrium interest rate I star. So let's see how the system moves towards equilibrium if the interest rate is IH. Now, this is an interest rate above the equilibrium interest rate. We can see that IH, MS here is greater than MD at this particular interest rate IH. So there is an excess money supply, which means there's excess money with people. So they'll buy bonds with extra money, as a result of which demand for bonds will increase. And when the demand for something increases, we know its price increases. And because bond price and interest rates are inversely related, the increase in the price of bonds will cause the interest rate on bonds to decrease. And because we know interest rate on bonds and money demand are inversely related, that's why the money demand curve here is plotted downward sloping with interest rate on the vertical axis. So when interest rates on bond decrease, that will increase money demand, we can see over here, until money demand is equal to the given money supply again. So this is a movement down the money demand curve. We can also see how the system moves towards equilibrium if the interest rate is below the equilibrium interest rate, say in this case IL. Right, so at IL, we can see MD is greater than MS. This is MD, this is MS. So as a result, there's an excess money demand. People want more money than they currently have. So in this case, they'll sell bonds to obtain more money. And when you sell something, we know its supply, and this supply of bonds in this case is increasing. And when supply of something increases, its price goes down. So price of bonds decrease. And as price of bonds and interest rates are inversely related, as price of bonds decrease, the interest rate on bonds increase. And we know because when interest rate on bonds increase, that will decrease money demand. Money demand and interest rates are inversely related. So as money demand decreases, money demand will decrease until money demand is equal to the given money supply MS bar again. And this will be represented by a movement up the money demand curve over here. So only when the interest rate is at its equilibrium value, there will be no tendency for it to move further, and the interest rate will settle at the equilibrium value I star. So in this way, we've shown that there is a tendency to approach this equilibrium